Hello, I'm Dr. Fergal Armstrong. Here's something that might change how you think about addiction. It's not really about pleasure at all. It's about learning. Your brain is designed to remember and repeat behaviors that help you survive. Addiction hijacks that system. Today, we're going to look inside the brain to understand exactly how that happens and why recovery is possible. Let's start with what addiction actually does. Most people think that dopamine is the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. Dopamine is more accurately described as a learning and prediction signal. Here's how it works. When something unexpected and rewarding happens, say you find $20 in your coat pocket, dopamine neurons in your midbrain fire rapidly. This surge tells your brain, pay attention, this is important, remember what just happened and how it happened. But here's the fascinating part. Once your brain learns to predict a reward, dopamine fires before you get it, in response to the cues that signal it's coming. This is called a reward prediction error, and it's fundamental to how we learn everything from language to complex skills. Your brain has a region called the Nucleus Accumbens, sometimes called the brain's reward center. It's part of a larger system called the basal ganglia, which governs motivation, habit formation, and movement. When you do something rewarding, dopamine floods into the nucleus accumbens, strengthening the neural connections that led to that behavior. This is your brain saying, do this again. Now, when someone uses addictive substances, three major changes occur in the brain. First, sensitization to cues. Substances cause dopamine levels that are up to 1,000 times higher than natural rewards. The brain learns this association intensely and rapidly. Anything associated with the drug, a place, a person, a time of day, an emotional state, becomes a powerful trigger. Recent research from Mount Sinai School of Medicine in 2025 shows that these cue response pathways involve not just neurons, but also supporting brain cells called astrocytes, making the learning even more deeply embedded. Second, reduced response to natural rewards. Over time, chronic exposure to high dopamine levels causes the brain to become less sensitive to dopamine, a phenomenon called tolerance. The brain literally reduces the number of dopamine receptors to try to compensate for the excess. What this means practically, food doesn't taste as good, relationships feel less fulfilling, hobbies lose their appeal. This is why people in active addiction often say that they feel flat or empty when they're not using. Their brain's reward systems have been fundamentally recalibrated. Third, weakened control circuits. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's executive control center, becomes less active. Brain imaging studies show reduced blood flow and glucose metabolism in this region in people with active addiction. This is the part of your brain responsible for impulse control, planning, emotional regulation, and weighing long-term consequences. When it's impaired, you're operating with a compromised ability to say no, even when you genuinely want to stop. The craving circuits in the basal ganglia and limbic system are screaming go, whilst the prefrontal cortex that should say stop is struggling to be heard. These three changes, cue sensitization, reduced natural reward response, and weakened control, explain virtually everything we see in addiction. They explain why someone might walk past their old using location and suddenly experience intense cravings. They explain why relapse often happens during stress, when the prefrontal cortex is further impaired. They explain why people continue using even when they desperately want to stop. But here's the crucial point. The brain's ability to change, its neuroplasticity, works in both directions. The same mechanisms that created these changes can reverse them. Recent imaging studies from the National Institute on Drug Abuse show remarkable recovery. After 14 months of abstinence from methamphetamine, dopamine transporter levels in the reward system return to nearly normal. Brain scans show the prefrontal cortex regaining activity. The structural changes, the actual physical alterations in synapses and neural connections, they can heal. This isn't instantaneous. Brain recovery takes time, typically months to years, depending on the substance and duration of use. But it does happen. In my decades of practice, I've seen patients regain their capacity for joy, rebuild their decision-making abilities, and reclaim their lives. The brain adapts, and it can adapt back. If you're in recovery or supporting someone who is, understanding these brain changes is empowering. First, recognize that cravings are neurological, not moral failures. When you encounter triggers, your brain is doing exactly what it learned to do. Treatment strategies like cognitive behavioral therapy help rewire these responses. Second, be patient with the recovery timeline. Your brain needs time to heal. Natural rewards will start to feel rewarding again, but it's a gradual process. Exercise, social connection, and engaging in meaningful activities all support neuroplasticity. Third, protect your prefrontal cortex. Adequate sleep, stress management, and avoiding secondary substances all help your executive control system recover. This is why comprehensive treatment addresses the whole person, not just abstinence. Addiction changes the brain, but those changes aren't permanent. Understanding the neuroscience removes shame and illuminates the path forward. Recovery is real, it's measurable, and it's happening in brains around the world today. If you find this helpful, subscribe to MedHeads for more evidence-based health insights. I'm Dr. Fergal Armstrong, and stay well.